Storyboards have long been the visual blueprint for filmmakers, animators, and content creators. Every frame of a storyboard is a building block to cinematic brilliance. Today, we're pointing out an often overlooked storytelling tool, the storyboard arrow. The history of the storyboard arrow dates back to the development of the storyboard itself. The modern storyboard format came into use in the film industry in the 1930s and was popularized by the Walt Disney Studio during the creation of animated films. Over time, storyboard artists have developed their own type of visual language using arrows, and although nothing is set in stone, there are some generally accepted ways of using them. Let's jump into StudioBinder's storyboard feature to see some examples of how they can be used. At their most basic, arrows indicate direction, and one of the most common ways to use them is to show camera movement. For example, in this first frame, we have our subject, a young woman, standing on a platform next to a moving train. I want to show that the camera will be panning to the right in the shot, so for a single direction movement, I'll just need a single direction arrow. There are some options to choose from, but I want it to appear as if the arrow is a part of the image, so I'm going to choose this fade option. So I'll add this arrow here. Now I have an arrow pointing from left to right with our subject covering the center. I could leave it at that, however, it isn't uncommon for annotations to be included on arrows as well. So to add additional clarity, I can click the annotate button here, and then add an annotation on the arrow that this is a pan right. Now click Save, and I have a brand new dynamic image that speaks for itself. The next example here, we have two frames of the same scene. With this, we can see how the use of two frames really relays the scale of the scene. Now in this shot, I want to show a trucking move, which is similar to a tracking move. However, where a tracking move moves forward and backward, a trucking move moves from side to side. Now I want to truck right following the army on the left as they approach the opposing army. So I'll add the base of an arrow to this image. Click Save, then add the point of the arrow on the next frame. Again, I could leave it there, but I want to be really clear, so I'm going to add an annotation letting the viewer know we will be trucking right on dolly tracks. And there we have it. In our next frame, we have a girl running down a hallway. I want this shot to have the parallax effect, or to make it look as if the hallway is extending on forever. Now to do this, I'll need to do a dolly zoom, specifically a dolly in, zoom out. So I'll add an arrow pointing forward and put an annotation for a dolly in. For the zoom, generally 4 arrows pointing toward the corners of the frame will indicate this. So I'll add the corner arrows here and click Save. And now we have a frame that relays exactly what we need. In this example, let's take a look at how multiple frames can be used to show a sequence of movements. For example, in the next 2 frames, I want to show a tilt rack. Now, while technically not a movement, storyboard arrows can still be used to show a rack focus. So in this first frame, I'm going to add an arrow pointing up to indicate a tilt up. I'll add an annotation to clarify, and click Save. Then on the second frame, I'm going to add a rectangle to show where we will be focusing, an arrow pointing from where the focus is being pulled from, and an annotation. Now, when I click Save, we have 2 frames that clearly show a tilt rack movement. Okay, so we've covered how to indicate a zoom out with arrows, And a zoom in most cases, would be just the opposite, 4 arrows pointing in from the corners of the frame. Another way of doing this to save time is to add a single arrow, scale it to the size I want, then duplicate it so it's the same size each time. Now just rotate them and place them, and there we go. And finally, in our last frame, we have a car driving down a road. I want the camera to perform a crane movement, which is typically when a camera is mounted to a crane or jib and moves up or down. But I also want to keep the car in frame. So I'll need to indicate a crane up, tilt down. I'll add the annotations for each of these movements and click Save. So as you can see, storyboard arrows are great for indicating camera movement. But movement isn't isolated just to the camera. Let's take a look at how arrows can be used to indicate subject movement. In our first example, I have a superhero who just burst out of a building. I want to show his trajectory, so I'll add the base of an arrow to the first frame, and add the middle and point to the second frame. And now we have 2 frames that look as if they were ripped straight from the source material. You can also use arrows to indicate more subtle movements, such as an eyeline shift. Arrows can also be used to indicate movement from an action that a subject is doing. For example, I want to show that the dog in this frame will be shaking his body dry. Along with movement, arrows can also show the path a character might take. This can be really helpful, especially during a text scout, to determine what exactly will be in frame along his path. And in our last example, I want to indicate that Elvis is going to be coming forward on the stage while the 2 groups of backup dancers break off to the left and right. Now we have a dynamic frame that lets us know the blocking of the scene. Okay, so far we've gone over how storyboard arrows can be used to show camera and subject movement. But there are additional instances where they can come in handy. Let's take a look. In the first example, I have a production company logo sequence. Now I want to create a motion graphics storyboard to show what I want to happen in the sequence. So in the first frame, I'm going to add an arrow and an annotation that the text should be written in from the left. And in the next frame, I want the word media and the play button to scale into place. So I'm going to add these faded arrow options to the side along with an annotation. Now I have 2 clear frames that I can send to a motion graphics artist to get what I need. An additional use case is to show special effects. In this next frame, we have a superpowered person performing their superpower. I want to indicate that there will be an energy blast emitting from the character, so I'll add some arrows and annotations. Now it's clear to the special effects team what I'm looking for. Moving along to the next frame, we have a scene outside on the road. What I'm looking to get across is that 1, I want to show the woman's path, and 2, I also want to indicate that the car is going to be swiping the camera and performing an in-camera transition. And there we have it. Not only are we showing subject movement within a single frame, but also an in-camera transition. And in our last example, we have some kids playing baseball. Billy has always loved the game of baseball, but just isn't that good. So what I'm looking to show is a pan of the camera as he throws the ball, only to find that it falls short of its target. So I'm going to first add the base of a straight arrow pointing right, add an annotation for a pan, then add the base of this curved arrow. Now I'm going to add the pointed end of each arrow to the second frame, as well as some annotations for clarity, and click Save. And voila, there it is. So as you can see from these examples, there are many use cases for storyboard arrows, and these are just some of the most commonly used to get you started. Whether you're looking to show a camera movement, subject movement, or whatever the case may be, StudioBinder storyboard and image editing tools have your back. To view the examples or to get started with StudioBinder for free, check the links in the description. And if you're looking for more deep dives into the StudioBinder software or filmmaker interviews, be sure to like and subscribe to be notified when new videos are added. I'm Brandon with StudioBinder Academy. Thank you for watching, and we'll see you in the next one.